Hello. So I am going to show you my process in creating my own mind map. Again, mind maps can look very different for everyone. This is how mine's organized with drawings and with a lot of arrows and a lot of highlighting. But whenever you work on yours, it could look like anything. So first of all, I'm going to look at my prompt again and make sure I really understand the prompt. And so I'm writing about the literary canon and what is associated with it. So things I highlighted were like classic, traditional, essential, standard. You think of Shakespeare, right? Versus this disruption of the narrative of the canon due to the biases in the canon. So talking about culturally responsive curriculum and talking about students seeing themselves through texts. And so I was thinking of William Shakespeare versus Sandra Cisneros, as you can see here. But yeah, I basically broke down the prompt and tried to understand it, think about my associations while having a little bit of fun because I didn't really know where to start. And drawing is a good way to figure it out. So essentially, I'm looking at this prompt and I'm thinking, okay, do I want to defend or challenge or qualify this idea that we should teach traditional literature, the canon, and whether or not it's outdated. And so I want to defend it. And so what I did is I took all my sources and kind of cut and paste all the quotes I highlighted during my initial read. And then I try to find connections between them and summarize them. And as you can see, I highlighted like the blue. It's all about that idea of nostalgia and why we keep to tradition. I connected some of the pieces together about the pushback that moving on to this diverse curriculum has had, just interesting things that stood out to me. And then at the end of each source, I put a takeaway, kind of my summary. And so I did that with source B as well, and they were connected in different ways. And I'm not going to go into detail much about what I highlighted in my commentary. If you really wanted to, you can look at it closer. But the thing is, I want to emphasize that it makes sense to me, and it could make sense to someone if they're looking at it just through the quotes that I have and the arrows that I'm drawing, as well as the highlighting. So I'm trying to bring some order into this, and that's part of mind mapping, is laying the information down in front of you and mapping out where you see connections so that whenever we do start to write this essay, we can see the ideas come together. And this essentially is like a planning page. And then my last source, you only have to use 2 out of the 3 sources. I'm an overachiever and I picked out these sources myself, unlike you. And I put in another source. This one was different, but again, highlighted, showed arrows between connections, and wrote a little takeaway at the end of this one as well. So I did that for each one, and throughout it I may have went back to different sources and found other connections and drew arrows or highlighted accordingly. And at the bottom left hand corner, I know you can't see it because it got cut off a little bit, but I'm breaking down different ideas that I can reference. So as ultimately I wrote down all the things that had common ground between each of the sources. I even took some notes of like what I wish I could add that I didn't have information on. So like maybe from an author's point of view, or including some other aspects like that. And maybe even things that I didn't like. So the censorship thing, I don't know if that will be off task or not. So probably when I get started writing, I can determine whether or not I should delete that. But after I came up with all these different ideas, I thought it'd be time to actually look at my revised claim. So I didn't write an initial claim like most of you did. This is my first attempt, but as you can see, I struggled at first, and that's the beauty of writing, right? It's supposed to be a struggle. You're supposed to work at it. It's a process. So I revised and revised and revised until I got the wording right, and then I have my claim at the bottom. It's not perfect. I'm not 100% happy with it, but it's a lot better than my first 3 goes, so I'm going to keep it like that. But I hope this gives you a better understanding of what I'm looking for in your mind map. Again, it can look any way you want it to, as long as it has evidence from 2 sources and has your new revised claim and just essentially shows your thinking. That's the most important part of this.